Hello everyone, and welcome to this first video and what will hopefully be a series of videos on Introduction to Linguistics. So we're going to start this off immediately asking what is language, because if you're going to study linguistics, it could be a little bit useful to know. Language is different from other forms of communication that we observe in the natural world, such as the dances that bees do to show where the honey in the flowers is, or when the chimpanzees grunt at each other and say, "Look out, there's a leopard over there," and that those systems of communication cannot be broken down into component parts that are capable of expressing an infinite range of meaning. So, we can say, for example, that bee dances and the grunts of chimpanzees and whale songs are not language. However, these component parts vary, and there's quite a few of them. And linguistics studies a lot of these. Additionally, linguistics studies other areas such as historical linguistics, which is the evolution of language over time, and sociolinguistics, the use of language in society. We will not get to that in this series of videos. So, moving on. So, what is linguistics? Linguistics is the scientific study of language and its various aspects. So, in this series of videos, we're going to go over the four most basic aspects of linguistics, or areas: phonetics, phonology, morphology, and syntax. There are other areas of linguistics, particularly semantics. However, we will not be going over that in this series of videos, and if this goes well, I might make another series on semantics. So there's two basic ways of approaching language that we're going to look at just briefly. Afterwards, from this point, we're only going to look at one. Now, when you went to school, you were probably taught about the way that language should be, how not to split infinitives, what a noun is, that kind of thing. Except with the exception of what a noun is, this is what we call prescriptivism. And we call it prescriptivism because it prescribes what language should be like. So your English teacher in high school probably told you can't split an infinitive, when in fact this is not true. You can absolutely split an infinitive, as Captain James Kirk said, "to boldly go where no man has gone before." If you said "to go boldly where no man has gone before," it doesn't quite sound the same, yet any competent English speaker will understand "to boldly go where no man has gone before." Rather, this is a rule that has been analogized or brought from Latin, where the infinitive is baked in to the word. So facere, which means to do, the re at the end is the to part. You can't take it off without it and have it make sense. So what we're interested in linguistics is descriptivism. We're interested in the way that language is, or what it describes, what we can describe about it as well. So it is a fact that I have just described to you that English is indeed capable of breaking infinitives, to give an example. So, moving on. Our first area of linguistics that we're going to take a quick look at is phonetics. And right by each mini title that I have here, I've listed what the basic component of this is. So we were talking about the basic components of language. Each one of these areas has its own type of component. And phonetics, in a way, is kind of like the quantum physics of linguistics, in that there's the smallest possible way we can get, smallest possible component we can get down to. Sign languages also have an equivalent. However, this term we're going to use for this, most basic component of most basic components, is the phone or a sound. Phonetics studies the way that sounds are put together. It also studies what sounds are permitted next to one another. And it also studies the physical production of sounds. So where is a T made in relation to a D? Is it further towards the front of your mouth, or is it further towards the back of your mouth? And in this area of sounds and phones, we have vowels and consonants. Vowels are those sounds which permit free airflow, and consonants are those sounds that restrict airflow. Like the rest of these other basic components, I plan on making another video about this one. Now, phonology, you might think, is the same thing as phonetics, but it is not. Phonology instead studies what we can think of as sounds in the mind, the way those sounds are perceived. So while phonetics is studying the actual physical sounds that you can abstract from an MP3 recording, let's say, phonology deals with the way those sounds are perceived. So if you're an English speaker, I would like you to say the word cats, cats, and then I would like you to say the word dogs, dogs. Now, many of you are probably going to perceive that last sound at the end of cats and dogs is the same sound. However, take some time and think about the way you're saying these, and even put your hand on your neck if that will help. Say cats, cats. That S doesn't make your throat vibrate, but now say dogs, dogs. Z. That Z sound shows us that it's a different sound. However, we're perceiving it as the same thing. So this would be an area of interest to a phonologist. And the minimal unit we have here is called a phoneme. A phoneme is similar to a phone or a sound, but it's not always quite the same. So we have S is a phoneme in the example of dogs and cats. It's perceived as the same sound, but it's not the same sound. And this perception is what we call a phoneme. Moving on, we have morphology, which studies the way words are constructed and the way that they are put together. So we all know that there are certain prefixes and suffixes, such as in the famous word anti-disestablishmentarianism, which is an extreme example. These different parts, prefixes, suffixes, and even the root word itself, like establish, as we see here, these are what we call morphemes. These are the building blocks of language, hence the picture of the Jenga here. And with these building blocks of language, we can create words. However, as you can see, not every morpheme can stand on its own. If I just tell you airy, you don't know what that means. It doesn't mean anything. But if I say cat, you have an idea of a cat in your mind. You know what a cat is. They say meow. They're wonderful. They jump on your keyboard. They're annoying, but we love them all the same. They're actually not annoying. They're wonderful. However, if we want to talk about more than one cat, we can put a simple S at the end of the word. Now, a cat is what we're going to call a free morpheme. If I say cat to you, you instantly know what a cat is, as I've established. If I say s, you don't. That is what we would call a bound morpheme. And morphology is the study of these morphemes. Once again, we're going to go into more depth into this in another episode. Syntax is where we finally get to the study of how words connect to each other. Syntax studies what we would call the parts of speech. Each word is assigned a part of speech, and we can think of this as what a word does in a sentence. So let's take an example that I have over here. The cat jumps. You know, cat is a noun. We didn't note a noun is a thing that you can point to. It is an idea, a place, a thing, a person, an animal, etc. And how do these parts of speech interact with one another? These parts of speech or words can be grouped into phrases, which we would call groups of words. And then these phrases combine with other phrases or groups of words. In English, we always need a noun phrase, which will consist of either just a noun or sometimes with a determiner, which would be a word like the, this, that, and a verb phrase, which will at least always have a verb in it. For example, it jumps. So to conclude, language is not thought. Many animals and babies are demonstrably capable of thinking. Language is not the written variety of a spoken language. The proper form of English is not English. It is merely a variety of English. Neither is it the formal variety of language or standard taught in school. Indeed, they teach different varieties of English in Mississippi, New Mexico, and Britain and Australia. Nonetheless, these are all English, and they're all indeed language. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.